Okay, so the first step is to install the blocking disc on the wheelchair. So first thing, we take a wheel and we're going to install the blocking disc.
What is a tab Handrims? They show tabs, tongs, languettes, or plates that are welded to the Handrim. Tabs attached to the wheels using either screws or studs and nuts. Screws or studs are positioned perpendicular to the wheel axle. Some manufacturers are using screws. In these cases, screws are simple to loose and tight. Some manufacturers use studs that extend from the rim on which a nut is screwed. In those cases, the studs will tend to spin in place when unscrewing. A good trick is to use Carpenter Clamps that you install on both sides of the stud. You want the nut to be screwed or unscrewed. The shear force will block the stud rotation.
Let's take a look at the kit that is supplied within the box for this type of installation. The first thing you can see is transition bracket. They are L-shaped and have the possibility to be attached to the existing bolt that are already on the wheel, and plus you have a screw on it which will allow us to attach the blocking disc to the wheel. You'll have also spacers, quarter of an inch, okay, that we will use to space in between this bracket and the blocking disc.
Let's install the transition brackets.
We're going to install the transition bracket, these, okay, over the existing attachment tab or the screws, okay. And what we do is, first of all, we do slack the screw or the nut if you are dealing with another type of with a stud that goes from inside of the tire toward the outside. So the nut or the screw, and then you just slide the bracket in place over the screw or the stud like this, okay. You make sure that it's perpendicular or parallel. The flat surface is here is parallel to the table like this, because we're going to be attaching the screws that will hold the blocking disc this way, okay. So once you've done this, you tight it in place, making sure to hold it so that it will remain as straight or as parallel to the table as possible, okay, this way, good. And we repeat the same thing on the 6 or 4 attachment for the Handrims. Now that we did install all the bracket on each and every attachment point of the tabs or the Handrims attachment point, we need to choose whether or not we are going to be using some spacers or not. Okay, what we want to have is we want the disc, the blocking disc, to be as close as possible to the tire, okay, but we still want to have enough space in the center so that the blockers will go in and won't be interfering with these rods here, okay. So first thing that we are going to look at is, again, we take the blocking disc, we do identify the starting hole. It's easy to see. 2 arrows pointing at it means that you should always start any installation with this hole here, okay. So let's do that. So we put it on the wheel itself, okay? And then we look without spacers, we look at the center here, okay? And we see that there's enough space underneath so that the clearance is at least 1/8 of an inch. So in that way, we won't be using any spacer. Should that distance would be not sufficient, then there's some 1/4 of an inch spacers that are supplied with the kit, okay, with the wheels, the blocking disc, I would say, and you should be using these in that case, okay? But for now, giving what we have here, we won't be using any spacer. If you ever have to use the spacers, then what you do is that you put the spacers in place and then you put back the disc, the blocking disc in place. So the spacer is really in between the attachment bracket and the blocking disc outside rim. As we said previously, we put the rim or the blocking disc in place, always starting with the hole identified with the 2 arrows. Then using the screws that are supplied, we put in place the first screw and repeat with the opposite screw. Doing that will center the blocking disc with the tire itself, and then we go with the other one and do the opposite. And you don't tight the screws in place until all the 6, in that case the 6 screws are engaged, and once they are engaged, then you'll be able to tighten the screw without any problem. So we tighten the screws in place. Using a power tool will cut the time by much, and it's not a problem to be using a power tool. Make sure that you screw all the screws. Okay, and then we go back on each screw, making sure they are tight enough. And the last one, and that's it. And then we repeat the same procedure with the other side, the other wheels, and this is about step 1.